to learn Angular. So before that, we have to learn some of the prerequisite. Prerequisite are like, so some of the front-end technologies like HTML and CSS, JavaScript. So one more CSS framework we are also going to learn. So that is Bootstrap. So thereafter TypeScript, and finally Angular. Okay. So our primary intention is to learn Angular only, but before learning this Angular, we are going to learn these things as well. So these are all called what? UI technologies, or else we can also call it as a front-end technologies. So in this course duration, in this training period, I'm going to teach you each and every thing related to this stack, like HTML, CSS, Bootstrap, JavaScript, and TypeScript. But so in the 60 hours of time, I will more and more focusing on Angular development only, Angular application development only. But so before that, so we need so the raw things and the basic stuff, so related to web technologies. So we'll also learn from the scratch onwards. I will give you a spoon feeding from here. You can make use of this, and so one thing, for each and every session I'm going to give assignments, each and individual concept wise I will give you individual assignments, so that you will be perfect in the subject as well, like you will be perfect in the scenarios as well. Okay, so after all completion of this entire course, so before like around 50 hours afterwards, I will give you some of the sample scenarios, like POC kind of real-time scenarios. Those things you can do by yourself, so to become so most like a real-time guys. Okay, fine. So let me start our basic intro. So regarding our main agenda for today's class is to start introduction related to UI technologies. Like, so in this we are going to learn HTML, CSS, Bootstrap, JavaScript, TypeScript, Angular. So further, before going to start HTML, I will tell you some of the basic terminology, okay, which in our regular life regarding our application, regarding our development, so we are discussing each and every day. So we are talking about these applications like web applications, front-end technology and back-end technology. What are all these? How the application structure? So what are all involved in the application? Those things we will discuss now. Okay, first. Okay, you might have heard about the web application, right? Web application. So first let me tell you, so what is a web application? Right. So web application is nothing but, so any application, you know about the application, right? Application is a collection of programs which are used to perform a particular task. The task might be any task. Okay, the web applications are accessed by the user through the web. So through the web in the sense, so within the internet, so by using the internet with the help of web browser, the user are going to access the application. Suppose, let me tell you, I have opened one web browser called Google Chrome. See, so I have opened the Facebook. Okay, this is a web application, and so Gmail. So this is a web application. So we can say, so which runs in the internet, right? Which runs in the internet. That's why you can call it as a web application, which is also using the web browser. Okay, so this web browser is acting as an interface, and so which is working in the internet. So that's why we are calling it as a web application, right? Okay, so as the definition was, I'll tell you, web applications are accessed by the user through the web browser within an active network area. So this application architect of this application model is a model. Okay, any web application. Suppose an application, we can call it as a web application, which is structured with the help of an architecture that is called what? Client server architecture. Okay, so what is meant by client and what is meant by a server? Who are all the users, and so what is the server, what is the client, so what is the front end, what is the back end, we are going to discuss now. Okay, I will give you a brief demonstrations, like a pictorial representation regarding a client server, so that you can get a better idea on the architecture. Okay, suppose any web browser like Google Chrome. Just now I am using Google Chrome, right? So that Google Chrome, a browser, web browser. Okay, here one client I have taken and one server I have taken, right? So assume that this is a client and this is a server. Client. So say this is a client and assume this is a server, right? Client and server. We are exclusively discussing about the web application, so that's why. So this entire application, so this client server architecture application, I can call it as a web application. I can name it as a web application. See, web application, web application, right? So see, in other words, I can say any web application which follows the client server architecture, and which runs over the net with the help of web browser, either Google Chrome, Mozilla Firefox, or Opera Mini, or Safari, any Edge Chromium browser, Internet Explorer, any web browser which can take for executing a web application, and so by using some of the front-end technology which are developed by using the front-end technology, we can call it as a front-end, like a web application. Okay, so front-end technologies and back-end technologies are also involved. So we can say client side, whatever the technologies we are going to use, so that technologies are called what? Front-end technologies. Front-end technologies. Assume that this is a web application, so which is using the help of web browser, and by using web technologies, it entire application is designed. But in the web application, so there are also some front-end technologies and some back-end technologies. Back-end technologies. Okay, so how this architecture will work? Suppose, as I said, let us take one Gmail application. This is also making use of a web browser called Google Chrome here, and I'm giving a request and getting the response in terms of client server. Okay, suppose Facebook. Okay, so whenever the client is nothing but a user, whoever using that application, so those are called what? Clients or users. Okay, if I want to get response is nothing but here. So if I want to get this login page, okay, if I want to get that login page, what I should do here? I have to enter this URL, okay, as a request. See, as a request, like this. Sorry, like a simple brush. As a request here, client or user. So here as a request, I'm typing this. Okay, so like this, if I give www.facebook.com, okay, let us say, so I can say like this, only request. Okay, anything I will explain. Let us say this is a request. Okay, so this is a request. As a request, I will give website address, and then after, as a request from the client side, so I have given a request like www.facebook.com. Okay, so thereafter what it will do, so this application, so from server side, server is nothing but here what, which is going to serve response for a particular request. Here the request is like to open login, to get the login page of a Facebook application. Okay, to get the Facebook application response. Okay, now so I got the login page. So this is works by using a web browser within the internet. So that's why it is called as a web application. Okay, whatever it is. So client is nothing but whoever going to give the request for a server. So that server will use the response in terms of any of the format, like one HTML document, one HTML format of a page. It will be displaying like login page, so like friends page, profile page, whatever it is, sign up page, like that. Okay, so in this aspect, whatever the aspect here, see, in this area. So what are all the technologies which are used for to develop client side application, that we can call it as a front end technologies. Okay, so then what are all the technologies which are used to develop a backend application, so that are called what? Backend technologies. Okay, so now we got the clarity, like what is a web application, and what is a front end, and what is a backend, right? So the any application, I will tell you here clearly. Web application is nothing but any application accessed by the user through the web browser by using the internet or the active internet, which are accessed through the web browser. That applications are called what? Web applications. Okay, so these web applications are mainly follows client server architecture. Web applications are mainly follows client server architecture. So what is meant by client server architecture? So these applications will works with remote procedure call. Remote procedure calls means just here from the client or from the user, so the request is going to give, like the request is going to give for the server. Okay, so the request is going to give for the server. Again the server is going to give the response back from the server to client. Okay, so like this, if you want to get some response, you need to give the request from the client. Client, we can also call it as a user. From the server, from the backend, you are going to get the response. That we can call it as a response from the backend. Okay, so this architecture, remote procedure call in the sense request response based applications are called what? Remote procedure calls, and these applications works over the web, so are also called what? Web application. Right. So here, whatever the client side application which we are going to develop, those are called what? Front end. Okay. Whatever the server side, the technologies which are going to develop the application, those are called what? Backend technologies. You got the clarity right now? Now, okay. So next thing is the application. As I said, application is classified into two parts. Like one is front end. Now anyhow we are going to discuss about the front end and front end technologies. We are much focusing on the front end only, and another one is back end, right? Front end and back end. See, you got the definition of web application and what is a client server model. Client server model or architecture, whatever, any web application, any enterprise applications will follow the client server model only. So right, next the front end. What is the front end here and what is the back end here, and what are all the front end technologies and what are all the back end technologies? Like front end, just now I have opened one Gmail application or Facebook application, right? Whatever the visible part on the UI, UI in the sense what? So on the monitor, so user interface, whatever visible place, visible area, whatever user sees on the application, like on the browser, on the UIs, that we can call it as a front end. Like suppose here, so we have a Facebook account, so some text boxes here and some login button and forget password, create new accounts, like so whatever this visible part, entire part, I can say, sorry, I can say, so this entire part, okay, this entire part I can say front end. Okay, so whatever the visible part user can see in the application, that is called what? Front end. Okay, so user interface, UI technologies are called what? User interface technology. Interface is nothing but a mediator between backend and a user. Mediator in the sense here what? A front end. Okay, so whatever the user sees, that would be called what? Front end. Okay, so to design, to develop such a kind of user interfaces or front end, we are using front end technologies. Suppose if you can see, so these like w3schools.com, I have opened a web application and here these menus and here some list and some icons, some buttons. So what are all these visible part user can see on the user interface on the browser? This is also called what? UI or front end. This is also called what? Front end. Front end, user can see this on the UI on the front end. Okay, and Gmail, so this space whatever user can see, so this is called what? UI. Like this, how this is structured, user can see whatever the backend data which will comes, that irrespective of that. Suppose one like this layout, like the 4 boxes we have, and in that each box is having again 4 items like this. So these visible part to the user will be called as a front end. Okay, so it interacts with the user interfaces. That's why we are calling it as a user interface, right? And to design, to develop such a kind of front end applications, we are using front end technologies or else UI technologies. Those UI technologies are called what? HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and jQuery. And suppose what we are learning Angular. Okay, Angular JS. Angular JS is separate and Angular is separate. Okay, Angular. Then React JS. So Vue.js. There are lots of UI technologies are there. So, but mainly we are focusing on this. Okay, mainly we are focusing on this. Right? Yeah, I'm audible, right? Clear? Yeah, fine. Okay, so these are all called what? Front end technologies. Simple thing in a web application. See here, in a client server architecture in the web application, right? So whatever the client side development will be happen, that will be taken care by the front end technologies. We can also call it as front end, right? Now we got the clarity, right? That is a front end. Okay, so then what is the back end, right? What is the back end? See, the back end is a part of the application in the web application that is hidden from the user. Suppose if I open this application like facebook.com, I can see this one, and whatever the backend behind this UI, behind this front end, whatever the data is coming from and from where the data is coming, so these things I don't know. Okay, so further this is not visible to the user. The backend application that is hidden from the user. Okay, that part is especially for data processing. The hidden part, backend part, the data processing or data storage and some operations which we are going to do on the backend. So these things will be done with the help of backend. By name itself, it clearly tells that front end is nothing but front to the application, visible to the user. Backend is behind that. The backend, the data will be processed and data will be stored and data will be served to the request. Okay, as a response. So the backend technology we can define in this way also. The technology is used to decide so which data should show, what data should show for the respective request as a response. Okay, that is called what? Backend. Suppose, so there are lots of backend technologies available in the market, and in that I will listing out some of the backend technologies like suppose Node.js, Node, and Java is also one of the backend technology, and Python is also one of the backend technology. Express.js, so JavaScript related one only. Express.js and Ruby. So there are so many languages and language respective frameworks, like suppose Java related Hibernate, Spring, like suppose we have .NET framework, and there are so many. Okay, so C++, C. So by you, these are all the backend technologies. These are all the backend. These are all the backend technologies. By using certain technologies, the backend implementation will be done. Like here, the backend server side. Here, the data processing will be happen, data storage will be happen, whatever the particular request that what to show in the client side, that should client side is nothing but here in this the web page UI, what to show, that will be decided by the server backend technology. Okay, so we are not even considering about the backend technologies. Simply what we are going to do, the backend technologies, ignore about the backend technologies. We are simply focusing on the front end technology to develop a front end application as a part of our course training, right? In which we are going to learn HTML, CSS, Bootstrap, JavaScript, and TypeScript. Like, or you have